With my diagnosis, they told me that I had 3 months to live, basically. I felt like everything around me had stopped, but that the world, it sounds very cliche, but that the world kept moving. You don't expect those cliches to really happen, but for me it really did.
When I was given the diagnosis, first of all I went through routine screening and I had to have a biopsy on that same morning. I sort of went with what I thought was probably going to be discarded as being nothing to worry about, to finding that I was meeting a Macmillan nurse for the first time, breast cancer nurse. Everything's happened so quickly on that Tuesday morning. It wasn't until I sat back in my car and rang my husband to tell him the news that it all sort of overwhelming.
When I received my diagnosis, I was devastated. I felt that lightning had struck twice because only 6 months earlier, my twin brother died of the same cancer, only it had advanced and it was inoperable. I asked, am I going to die? How long have I got? How bad is it? Where is it spread? What did I do wrong? A flood of thoughts that came. I wasn't angry at all, but I was full of these questions. And my biggest question was, after I recollected myself, was what happens next?
Even now, I reflect on questions that I wish I'd asked or things I wish I'd known. And one of the things that comes back to me time and time again relates to knowing what I was entitled to ask. So it wasn't specific questions, although specific questions, came up. It was much more about, am I entitled to ask what an MDT is? Am I entitled to know that I have options other than radiotherapy? Now, I want people to know, you're entitled to it all, it's your life. It's so ludicrous to me that I thought that at the time.
At the time, you don't think about the questions because your mind is in a whirl. And my dad's mind was just even worse. So you walk away and you're just like, did that actually just happen? And I think it was like that for weeks afterwards. And it isn't until you get your first appointment that you suddenly think, oh my God, this is real.
Don't be afraid to ask any questions, because you're steamrolled into a situation and they take over all the clinical part, but you're left on your own, standing paralyzed, and you have really nowhere to go and who to ask. And nobody tells you. And months later, I discovered that there is a booklet that tells you exactly what to do after you have a patient at home.
I would have liked to ask, where should I get information on what to do? And I was taken straight to the Macmillan Information Centre, which was very overwhelming. They gave me so many leaflets. But I would have liked to ask them that if I wanted to find something specifically about my cancer, what website should I look at?
I think Google is good to a point, but it can give you the worst case scenario. My dad and I are quite factual, so we like to know exactly what's going on. So it was a great way of finding out a bit more about chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and the treatments that he was having. Because sometimes you don't get the time to ask those questions in with the consultant.
Never ever go to a consultation meeting or any other meetings without a note paper and a pad. And ask as many questions as you can think of, and tell them that if you've got any further questions, you'll come back to them and get the answers. Get the names of the people, key operators who are going to be liaising with you and your family.
Sometimes people get given leaflets at the hospital and stuff. My mum didn't get anything, and she didn't feel confident enough to look for information and get information. I felt that I had a bit of knowledge being a nurse, that I looked on NHS websites and stuff, but there's a lot of stuff out there, and I think you have to look carefully at what you get.
I would advise people not to just go and Google willy-nilly, because you will have all these other American sites and everybody's individual journeys are different. The way treatment plans differ between countries. And sometimes you can find harrowing stories and it may never happen to you because you don't even know what stage you are at with your cancer.
I think my main concern was to get on with the treatment and see what happened. I don't think you can know what's going to happen to you, really, because everyone will be having tailored treatment and they won't know how they'll feel because it's a new experience.
I would say it's very important to have a key contact person because they are the person that gives you stability when you're going through that journey.
My advice would be ask your oncology nurse or your clinical nurse specialist or your key worker. First and foremost, ask for who you should be having a dialogue with as you go through this journey, and you will have concerns and thoughts.
Find someone who makes you feel comfortable. Start with support groups, start with looking online. I think Cancer Maps, one of the places we refer you to, will help you to find out what's in your area.
I think access to any help and support is really important. So particularly coming from an Asian family, many Asian families are not able to talk to each other, whether it's stigma or it's fear or it's denial. I can resonate with all of that because my mother's best coping mechanism was denial.
In the Japanese culture, they usually don't talk about cancer, and they don't even talk to the person that has cancer. I think it is important to talk because you can have lots of help outside of your family, and you can go to support groups that will help you a lot.
I'm involved with the BLMK Cancer Patient Forum, and the reason for having got involved with that is to help other people through the journey when they're going through the cancer as a patient or as a carer, and provide things that we found useful or helpful.
Connecting to the patient forum was one of the best things I did. There are people who don't have your exact experience, but they do have an understanding of what cancer feels like and how isolating it can be.
There are organisations that will help you to look after children or your elderly dependents, your pets, get your shopping for you.
I went to the doctor in August with this lump. I had started my own business in August. So I had no income, I had no rainy day fund, I had no support. In fact, I had sold my house at the beginning of the year, so I was living on my mum's sofa. I was put in touch with somebody at Macmillan who would come over to the house. She would do things like look into finances, look into what I was entitled to for support.
What I know now is there are support groups out for carers, and I think if you're supporting somebody with cancer, then you do need support yourself. You do need to look after yourself because actually you can come quite tired.
When you're supporting a loved one, it's very stressful. I mean, I can't even tell you what even comes close to that sort of stress that you go through, especially when you're supporting them daily.
My mum had bowel cancer and she had a colostomy, and when she came home I would say she was possibly depressed. Even though she wasn't diagnosed as depressed, she thought she was going to die, and she wouldn't get out of bed in the morning. And I used to say to her all the time, "Mum, the cancer's gone now, the cancer's gone, you're all right." But she didn't hear me. And one day a district nurse came and she told us about a support group, and I said, "Oh, come on Mum, let's go to the support group." It was a real change. It changed overnight, really, because I think she realised that people live with cancer. Oh, sorry. And they live after cancer, and she came out there a different person.
For those that are going through it, obviously everyone is different. Every journey is different, and every patient and family member will react differently, and you can't put them all in one box.
Being given 3 months to live is a shocker. But you know what, I don't know what else to say, but the fact that I'm still here, I'm reminded every single day that I shouldn't be here. I've lost friends to cancer over the years. There are people who don't have a diagnosis and don't get the same outcome as me. But my thing is that I'm living for them too.
I've got a new outlook and an attitude to life. I have developed a strong sense of a positive mindset and the living in the present, and really kind of appreciating everything and every moment.